No, your eyes aren't fooling you. That is indeed a Billy Idol review on your screen. I'm not joking. Let's fucking go. Welcome to Ray Rona Does Music, where today we're doing an album review request from my very own mother. We're taking a look at Billy Idol's first album, self-titled Billy Idol. Before anything else continues in the video, I just want to say sorry for the look of the background and everything. My room's kind of a mess. I'm not feeling too well, so I'm actually sitting down right now. It's been kind of a up and down kind of past couple days, so please excuse that, and hopefully this visual effect doesn't take too much away. But let's just get into things. Honestly, when my mom requested this video, I expected her, because what I did was I asked her, hey mom, do you have any albums you'd like to see me review? I expected her to say something like, Elton John or Ozzy Osbourne or something like that, because we do share similar music tastes in those veins. I didn't expect a 80s rock band / artist. In fact, I'm actually kind of critical of 80s music, any genre really, because to me that decade produced a lot of music that sounded very samey. There's some standout artists. There's a lot of artists that did manage to break out from the pack and do very different things, but for the most part, I listen to music from that era and I kind of get the same thing from every band involved. But thankfully, this album turned out to be a welcome addition to some of the few 80s albums that I actually enjoy. Just to show that I'm not a complete pleb, here are some albums from the 80s, and if I have any from the 70s I can remember when I'm editing, here they are on the screen. These are albums from those eras that I enjoy. Hopefully I don't get slaughtered. But like I said, I wasn't really sure what to expect here. Of course I know White Wedding by Billy Idol. I feel like everybody knows that song. Is one of those songs in rock music that you just know, whether you listen to the radio or you just know the genre in general. But other than that, I didn't really know a lot of what Billy Idol has done. I wasn't really expecting a whole lot besides, kind of classic arena rock. But I actually got a few welcome surprises from Billy Idol, and especially guitarist Steven Stevens. There were some interesting moments on here, and I was really surprised and very excited to see that there was even some new wave influence. So, there's some genuine surprises to be had from an album that I did not have high hopes for. Right away, let's talk about the song that sort of pigeonholes Billy Idol for some people as a one-hit wonder. Let's talk about White Wedding Part 1, which I'm just going to call White Wedding for ease and other reasons. Diving into the actual meaning and the inspiration behind lyrics here, I was surprised to find that this track is actually kind of a sarcasm-laden thing, with lyrics kind of pointed at, an ex-lover, watching them, move on and go on to this new lover, get into the honeymoon phase with the white wedding here, plain namesake. There's even like a cocky moment in the chorus where it goes, it's a nice day to start again, which I really enjoy. The delivery and the to-the-point bluntness really just gets the point across quickly and efficiently in a way that, a lot of 80s music in any genre, I've noticed it's either right in your face the meaning is, or sometimes the meaning is kind of dotted very sparsely over the course of like a 20-minute song. Thankfully, we just get it again, blatant, direct, and in your face right here with, hey, I see you over there. See you trying to move on. Must be nice. Must suck. A nice little fact I actually found was the guitarist Steven Stevens was actually inspired by old spaghetti western soundtracks to create the introductory riff, which is the first riff of the song, if you can call it a riff. I know some people are really gatekeepy of that term for some fucking reason. I never expected that to be a term that people are all over like, oh, but it's a thing that happens. That first little guitar moment, it's a blink and you'll miss it thing, and it's worth really letting seep into you more than just like, oh, it's White Wedding, I've heard that 100 times over. Listen to that first little bit again, really realize, try and find the inspiration there that he got from spaghetti westerns and all that, and it's a really interesting idea now that I have that knowledge. From what I can tell, White Wedding and one other song are really the songs that people go back to this album for, both people who are actually from that era and people who listen to the music in retrospect, and the other song would be Hot in the City. It's an optimistic and hopeful track that I think actually is sort of made with inspiration from Billy Idol's old band, was it Generation X? Lyrically, it's just as to the point as White Wedding. It's just as direct and not wasting any time getting its idea across. And it retained its catchy qualities while ditching the sarcasm that it relied on in the previous track, which I really like that this isn't just an album that takes one idea and takes that rolling and rolling and rolling. There's different things coming in. There's different inspirations behind things, which again, I was very scared for reviewing music from the 80s because I'm very cynical towards music of that era. I look at it and I'm like, oh, this is just gonna be "I fucked a bitch in the green room" over and over. But yeah, it's not, and I'm happy about that. Like I said though, the track is just as catchy. It's just the perfect kind of thing if you just want to, put the top of your car down, blast it, drive down the highway. It's just that good feeling. And repetition does happen in a positive sense here, but this is the kind of repetition that, it's the good kind. It's the good wordage. It's not the same words over and over and over 20 times over. It's just the same thing repeated in the chorus to get the point across, to give you something to chant along to in a really good effect there. Lyrically, it was kind of hit or miss for moments that just felt like kind of plainly describing the moment versus moments that were going the extra mile to really put some more emphasis on things. But lyrics aren't the only thing keeping the ship afloat here. Ironically, right in a row on the track list, Dead on Arrival comes in and produces some fucking toe-tapping instrumentals to just back things up. And so does the other track, Nobody's Business. Sorry, scripts right here. So it's more obvious because I'm sitting down, my scripts right there. It's hard to do these reviews, man. I have the brain of a tuna can. Quick little fun fact, I was listening to the riffs on Nobody's Business, and they actually sound a lot like Talk Dirty to Me by Poison, which might be playing a part in why I'm enjoying this track a little more, as opposed to some of the other tracks on the album. Like, obviously I like White Wedding, but Nobody's Business was kind of a song that stuck out more to me, probably because of that, similarity there. But these songs, go back to White Wedding and Hot in the City, producing the same catchiness, producing the same feeling and emotions are getting out. This whole album thus far has been direct. It's been getting its point across without having to rely too much on trying to be vague for the sense of seeming deep. Billy Idol just brings it onto the table, leaves it there, and lets you sit with it, lets you get a feeling for it, and so on. Although the first half is where that positivity for keeping the same ideas flowing and consistency kind of ends, and I'll admit this kind of comes with the risk of someone like me reviewing an album from the 80s. Maybe it's because a lot of music I listen to sits in the 2010s or more recently, which is, in my opinion, one of the more varied eras in music, just because there's a genre for everything nowadays. You have more ready access to everything, and it's kind of hard reviewing an album from almost 40 years ago at this point, because you're trying to put yourself into the idea of, okay, how would this album come across to a current listener, as well as you're trying to put yourself into the headspace of somebody who just heard this album the first time back in the time it came out. But like I said, in the 2010s, there's a lot of creativity being put into a whole lot of different projects. There's, like I said, a genre for everything. There's always something to suck you in. Whereas I can't help but go through this album start to finish and come away with more than just a few positive similarities. It's a very cohesive album, and I think this is something I noted with past reviews. I don't know when these reviews are going up at all. These reviews could go up in such a weird order, but I think at this point I will have uploaded my Olivia Rodrigo review, as well as my The Offspring review, which I think those kind of are not The Offspring. Anyways, but point being, there's some albums that, while they're cohesive and while they can communicate an idea very well, beyond that, there's nothing more substance-wise. It's just the same thing over and over. You can tell there's love being put into the album. You can tell that Billy Idol has a genuine want to put out an album that has quality behind it. However, it's the same breathy arena rock vocals plus what sounds like the drummer kind of doing the same thing over and over on the track. Like I said, I noted Steven Stevens and Billy Idol. Those were really the only two people that stand out at all to me out of this band. Even with added elements like occasional female vocalizing that you kind of get with a lot of music from this era, and little vocal tweaks here and there to kind of mix up the sound of the lyrics and how they're being delivered, these things are very much making it seem, even in the vein of, putting myself into that perspective of, okay, it's the 80s, there's not a lot really snapping the listener back to attention. At this point, there were a lot of bands starting to do this kind of thing. This wasn't as much of the earlier times of, like, what is now classic rock, where not a lot of bands were doing this kind of thing. Not a lot of bands were doing the, straight up just, rock and roll stuff. At this point, there were enough bands doing it to where if you did the same thing over and over again, I'm sure people would notice, and I'm noticing that a lot with Billy Idol's album here. this might be a millennial-wise statement for me. I don't even know if I'm millennial. I was born in '98, but I grew up until my teen years on a lot of early 2000s and late '90s, rock and metal. So I was introduced to a lot of bands with nuance and differences as I grew up, and even some bands from the '80s. Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne. I think Metallica and Megadeth was boosting there too. I got some CDs from my uncle here that are like Megadeth and stuff like that. I was introduced to a lot of music from around that era that showed a lot of difference. But even listening to artists strictly from the year that this album came out, or artists that Billy Idol were associated with, Billy Idol kind of sits as one that does the same thing over and over without really bringing in any nuance, at least on this album. If you want exact examples of this kind of thing, where it's just the sameness and there's nothing new being brought to the table, Shooting Stars and It's So Cruel are unfortunate victims of this very idea, without me really having to explain much more beyond that. It's just the same thing again. It's typical 80s rock, but it doesn't distinguish itself from the pack at all. It just, nothing is done to make it stand out. I mean, the closing track, Congo Man, is a nice little out of left field moment. It's immediately makes you think, hey, is this the same album? What's something happened here? It's a little different, but it's a little too late at that point. Obviously, the first two tracks are the arguably most successful ones. Again, White Wedding and Hot in the City. But it's really just a super downward crawl from the moment Love Calling hits. Reviewing this album was definitely a challenge. I didn't expect to come away with anything too crazy positive to talk about. I didn't go in with a negative mindset, but having heard some of his music and some of the music from that era, like I said in the beginning, I kind of had this feeling of, this is going to be kind of a weird review, an awkward review here. Music can be made with the idea of just being fun in mind here. But when it comes to reviewing that kind of thing, the levels of acceptability with an album being justified as good because it's fun kind of wane and vary a lot. And for me, this arena rock thing, a lot of it's just, yeah, fuck yeah, we're loud, we're here, we're having a good time, we're young, we're not so young. That kind of thing, it can only sit for so long and produce more than just kind of an awkward stench. I hope that this comes across as a legitimate review. There's a part of me that worries that it came across as kind of like, oh, Ray Run was just complaining about an album from the 80s. I asked my mom for a challenge. I asked her for a review. She gave me a review. This review was done specifically for my mother and for the channel as a challenge for myself, and it was definitely a challenge. I'd love to listen to more Billy Idol, perhaps even review more of his music here on the channel. In fact, I think he actually released a completely new album as soon as 2014, I think. But hey, who knows? Especially that newest album could be a major change from what I'm hearing here on the self-titled effort. Things could change in the next album beyond that. But as for right now, I'm focusing on this one album right here, and I'm kind of not impressed. It's good, it's okay, it's not even very good. So with everything said, I think I'm going to be settling on a, unfortunately, very average 6.2 out of 10 for Billy Idol's self-titled album. Let me know what you thought about this review. This was more, like I said several times here, this was more of a challenge for me. I'd love to do more music from that era. I'd like to say that I'm accepting requests at any time. Like, if you have an album from any era that you want to see me review, comment it down below and I'll try and give it a go. Obviously, if in 2 years I have like a bajillion subscribers and everybody's commenting every 2 seconds, I can't get to it. But at the time I'm recording this in like mid-August, absolutely give me a suggestion. But beyond that and everything, thank you again so much for watching. Stay hydrated and have a good day.